Hello and welcome back to Shakesyear. We are working on A Lover's Complaint, which is one of the epic poems. And today we're going to take a look at stanzas 13 through 16. But to set the scene, what has come prior to this in the poem, there's a woman who looks totally disheveled. Her hair's a mess, her hat's askew, all sorts of things, and she's like ripping up papers and throwing all sorts of things into the river and crying lots. And then an older gentleman comes along and sits down next to her, but at an appropriate distance, and is like, please tell me what's wrong, because maybe the wisdom of my age, I can help in some manner or another. And she started by telling her story, saying, first of all, I'm not as old as I look, but what has aged me is the fact that I was in love with the wrong man, but oh my goodness, he was so pretty, I just couldn't help it. And in stanza 13, she goes on to describe this man that she was in love with by saying, his browny locks did hang in crooked curls, and every light occasion of the wind upon his lips their silken parcels hurls. What's sweet to do will aptly find. Each eye that saw him did enchant the mind, for on his visage was in little drawn what largeness thinks in paradise was sown. Small show of man was yet upon his chin, his phoenix down began but to appear, like unshorn velvet on that termless skin, whose bare outbragged the web it seemed to wear. Yet showed his visage by that cost more dear, and nice affections wavering stood in doubt, if best were as it was, or best without. His qualities were beauteous as his form, for maiden-tongued he was, and thereof free. Yet, if men moved him, was he such a storm, as oft twixt May and April is to see, when winds breathe sweet, untidy though they be. His rudeness, so with his authorized youth, did livery falseness in a pride of truth. Well could he ride, and often men would say, that horse his mettle from his rider takes, proud of subjection, noble by the sway, what rounds, what bounds, what course, what stop he makes. And controversy, hence a question takes, whether the horse by him became his deed, or he his manage by the well-doing steed. So these are 4 more stanzas in praise of this man. The first one is talking about his hair and how perfect his hair was. He's got brown hair, is what we learned from this, and it flows beautifully in the breeze. And in the second of these stanzas, she's talking about how he has just a little bit of scruff, and it's just a little bit like the beginnings of velvety fuzz on antlers or something like that. But it's enough that some people are like, well, he looks better with, he looks better without. Like, this is a thing that's talked about. And then in the third stanza, she says that he's as good a person as he looks. So he's well spoken and people respect him. But if he gets angry, but he's still kind in his anger. But it does that whole like sort of fake out thing where almost a passive aggression maybe, but I don't think that she's thinking of it as passive aggression at this point, or maybe she could be. And then in stanza 16, the last of these stanzas, she's talking about how excellent a horse rider he is, which was, it was a thing back then. It was good to be able to ride a horse well. And apparently he rode so well that other people would comment on it and wonder, like, was he controlling the horse or was the horse controlling him? Like, who was the master and who was the not master in that relationship, because they would, ride so well together. So perhaps in fairness, even though she told us a little bit earlier that she was much younger than she should have been to enter into such a wooing, into such a relationship, she had good cause. I mean, he was good looking, he was a nice person, he was a good writer, and we're probably going to find out some more about him in the next few stanzas, and we'll see what happened. And since it is called A Lover's Complaint, we're guessing that at some point everything went wrong, also because she's been tearing things up and throwing them in the river like the Rory blocks. But something's going to go downhill at some point. So come on back tomorrow and we'll find out exactly when that happens and what it was that happened. I'll see you tomorrow. Mwah.